My mother-in-law keeps inviting my husband's ex-girlfriend to every family dinner because she's the daughter she never had. So, I gave her an ultimatum. My husband Jake and I have been married for 2 years, and his mother Carol has invited his ex-girlfriend Amy to literally every family gathering since our wedding. Birthday dinners, holidays, random Sunday meals. Amy's always there with this sweet smile like she belongs. Jake says his mom is just being nice because Amy doesn't have family nearby. Carol always gushes about how Amy is like the daughter she never had, which stings because Carol treats me like an unwelcome guest in my own marriage. But I started noticing weird things that didn't add up. During our last dinner, Carol knew Amy's middle name was Rose before Amy mentioned it. She knew Amy was allergic to shellfish and had the EpiPen ready before Amy even arrived. When I asked how she remembered all these details, Carol just said she pays attention to people she cares about. Then I caught them sharing these knowing looks across the table, like they had inside jokes I wasn't part of. Carol would finish Amy's sentences, and Amy would laugh at Carol's stories like she'd heard them 100 times before. Jake didn't seem to notice, but it felt like watching two people who'd known each other for decades, not just the 3 years Jake had dated Amy. Last month, I saw Carol showing Amy old photo albums in the living room while the men watched football. They were sitting really close together, and Carol had her arm around Amy's shoulders. When I walked by, I heard Carol say something about how Amy had her grandmother's hands. Amy was staring at a baby photo, crying softly, and Carol was rubbing her back like she was comforting her own child. I asked Jake about it later, and he said his mom probably just meant Amy had nice hands like some random grandmother, but Carol had never mentioned anyone's grandmother before, and why would that make Amy cry? The whole interaction felt too intimate, too personal for a relationship that was supposed to be just kindness toward an ex. 2 weeks ago, I found a birthday card in Carol's purse while looking for aspirin. It was addressed to Amy for her 28th birthday, but the weird part was the message inside. Carol had written, "Happy birthday to my precious girl. I've loved you since the day you were born. Not since the day they met. Since the day Amy was born." The card was dated 3 months ago, and I realized Carol had been celebrating Amy's birthday separately from any family gathering we'd had. She'd been maintaining this private relationship that none of us knew about. I also noticed Amy and Carol have the same habit of twisting their hair when they're nervous, the same laugh, the same way of tilting their heads when they're thinking. Jake's family has strong genes, but Amy looked more like Carol than Jake ever had. Last Sunday, I decided to test something. I mentioned that my friend was looking into adoption records for a genealogy project. Amy went completely pale and excused herself to the bathroom. Carol started asking detailed questions about adoption searches, claiming she was just curious, but her voice was shaking. When Amy came back, she and Carol avoided eye contact for the rest of the meal. The tension was so thick I could barely breathe. That's when I knew there was something they were hiding from all of us. Yesterday, I finally gave Carol the ultimatum. I told her that either Amy stops coming to family dinners, or Jake and I would stop coming altogether. I was tired of feeling like an outsider in my own marriage and needed to understand why Amy was more important than her actual daughter-in-law. Carol's face crumbled, and she started crying harder than I'd ever seen. She said I didn't understand, that there were things about her past that Jake didn't know, that she'd made a terrible mistake 28 years ago that she'd been trying to fix ever since. And that's when I realized why Amy looked so much like Carol, and why she'd been treating her like the daughter she never had. Carol's face is streaked with tears, her mascara running in black rivulets down her cheeks. Her shoulders shake with each sob, and I stand frozen, the weight of what I've just realized pressing down on me like a physical thing. "She's your daughter," I whisper. Carol nods, her hands trembling as she reaches for a tissue. "I was 19, she says, her voice cracking. "I wasn't married. My parents would have disowned me. I had to give her up." Jake stares at his mother like he's never seen her before. "What are you talking about?" he asks, his voice hollow. "Mom, what the hell are you saying?" Before Carol can answer, the doorbell rings. We all jump at the sound, and Carol's eyes widen with panic. "Oh God," she whispers. "That's Amy. I texted her. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just needed to see her." "You did what?" Jake's voice rises dangerously. "Mom, what the actual fuck is going on?" I move toward the door automatically, my body on autopilot while my mind races. When I open it, Amy is standing there, her eyes red-rimmed like she's been crying too. She's wearing a simple blue sweater that brings out her eyes that I now realize are exactly the same shape as Carol's. "Hi," she says softly. "Carol texted me. She said it was urgent." I step aside wordlessly, and Amy walks in, her gaze immediately finding Carol on the couch. Something passes between them, that same silent communication I've witnessed so many times before, and Amy's face crumples. "You told them," she says. It's not a question either. Carol nods, unable to speak through her tears. "Told us what?" Jake demands, his voice getting louder. "Will someone please explain what the hell is happening?" Amy turns to Jake, and I see it now, the way she holds herself, the slight tilt of her head. It's all Carol. How did I not see it before? How did Jake not see it? I'm your half-sister, Amy says quietly. Carol is my biological mother. The room goes completely silent. Jake's face drains of color, and he takes a step backward like someone has physically struck him. That's not possible, he says finally. That's no. You dated me for 3 years. He stops, unable to finish the sentence. Carol stands up shakily. I was 19 when I got pregnant, she begins. It was before I met your father, Jake. I was young and stupid, and the father wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. My parents were strict Catholics. They would have thrown me out. I didn't know what to do. So you gave me up, Amy finishes for her. Her voice is steady, but I can see her hands shaking. I made an arrangement with a couple who couldn't have children, Carol continues. It was a private adoption. They promised to send me photos, to let me know how you were doing. And they did. For a while. Jake runs his hands through his hair, pacing the living room like a caged animal. And then what? You just happened to run into her 25 years later? She just happened to start dating your son? Do you expect me to believe that was a coincidence? Amy looks down at her feet. It wasn't a coincidence, she admits. I found out who my birth mother was when I was 23. I hired a private investigator after my adoptive parents died in a car accident. So you dated me to get to her? Jake's voice is dangerous now, barely controlled rage simmering beneath the surface. Was that the plan all along? Use me to worm your way into her life? No, Amy cries. It wasn't like that. I just wanted to see what my birth family was like. I never meant to fall for you. I didn't know you were her son when we first met at that coffee shop, but you figured it out, I say quietly. You figured it out and you kept dating him anyway. Amy looks at me, her eyes pleading. By the time I realized, we were already serious. I didn't know how to tell him. I was going to break it off, but then what? Jake interrupts. You thought, hey, why not keep dating my half-brother for another year or two? What the hell is wrong with you? Carol steps between them. Don't blame Amy. This is my fault. Damn right it's your fault, Jake shouts, his control finally snapping. You've been lying to me my entire life. And you, he turns to Amy, you dated me knowing we were related. Do you have any idea how sick that is? We never slept together. Amy blurts out, her face flushing red. I always made excuses. I wouldn't do that. Jake laughs. A harsh, bitter sound. Oh, well that makes it all better then, doesn't it? Jesus Christ. I watch my husband's world crumbling around him. And I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to comfort him, but another part feels just as betrayed. All those family dinners with Amy, all those times Carol made me feel like an outsider, it wasn't just that she preferred Jake's ex-girlfriend. It was that she was desperately trying to connect with the daughter she'd given away. I need some air, Jake says suddenly, grabbing his keys from the counter. I can't be here right now. Jake, please. Carol reaches for him, but he jerks away from her touch. Don't, he says, his voice breaking. Just don't. The door slams behind him, and the three of us stand in silence, the weight of 28 years of secrets hanging in the air between us. I look at Carol, then at Amy, seeing the same features reflected in both their faces, the same pain, the same regret. I should go after him, I say finally. No, Amy says quietly. Let him process this. He needs time. Don't tell me what my husband needs, I snap, surprising myself with the venom in my voice. You've done enough. Amy flinches like I've slapped her, and for a moment I feel guilty. But then I remember all the times I've felt like an intruder in my own marriage because of this woman, and the guilt evaporates. I never meant to hurt anyone, she whispers. Carol sinks back onto the couch, looking suddenly old and frail. None of us did, she says, but we've all been hurt anyway. I grab my own keys and head for the door, determined to find Jake. As I leave, I hear Carol ask Amy to stay, to talk things through. Part of me wants to turn around and demand they stop, that they've caused enough damage. But I keep walking. My husband needs me now more than ever, and unlike the two women behind me, I've never betrayed him. I just hope that's enough to help him through what comes next. Jake doesn't come home that night. I wait up until 3 a.m., calling his phone every 30 minutes until it goes straight to voicemail. I fall asleep on the couch with my phone clutched in my hand, hoping for a text, a call, anything. When I wake up the next morning, the house is quiet and empty, the events of yesterday crashing back into my consciousness like a physical blow. I call Jake again. Voicemail. I text him, please, just let me know you're safe. 3 dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, at Dave's place. Need time to think. Dave is his college roommate who lives across town. I feel a rush of relief knowing Jake is somewhere safe, followed by a wave of uncertainty. What happens now? My phone buzzes again, coming by to get some clothes later, around noon. When Jake walks through the door at 12:15, he looks like he hasn't slept. His eyes are bloodshot, his hair disheveled, his shoulders hunched like he's carrying something heavy. Jake, I start, moving toward him, but he holds up his hand. I can't talk about it yet, he says, his voice rough. I just need some clothes. I watch silently as he moves through our bedroom, stuffing clothes into a duffel bag. He grabs his toothbrush from the bathroom, his laptop from the desk. It feels like he's erasing himself from our home, piece by piece. How long? I ask, unable to keep the tremor from my voice. He pauses, his back to me. I don't know. I can't be around her right now. Either of them. What about me? The question slips out before I can stop it. Jake turns to look at me, his expression softening for the first time. This isn't about you. You didn't do anything wrong. Then don't shut me out, I plead. We can get through this together. He zips the duffel bag closed with a finality that makes my stomach drop. I need space to process all of this. He gestures vaguely, as if all of this is too big to name. Finding out your ex-girlfriend is actually your half-sister isn't something I know how to handle. As he walks toward the door, my phone rings. Carol's name flashes on the screen. Jake sees it, and his jaw tightens. Don't answer that, he says. I let it go to voicemail, but the damage is done. The moment of connection between us is broken. I'll call you, Jake says, but it sounds more like obligation than promise. After he leaves, I listen to Carol's voicemail. She's sobbing, asking if I've heard from Jake, begging me to help her fix this. I delete it without calling back. 2 days pass. Jake texts sporadically, mostly one-word responses to my check-ins. On the 3rd day, I can't stand the silence of our house anymore, so I drive to Carol's, determined to get answers. When she opens the door, I barely recognize her. Carol has always been immaculately put together, perfect hair, designer clothes, not a wrinkle in sight. The woman standing before me looks like she's aged a decade in 3 days. Her hair is unwashed, her eyes swollen from crying. Oh, thank God, she whispers, pulling me into a desperate hug. Have you heard from him? Is he okay? I step back, keeping my distance. He's staying with Dave, that's all I know. She ushers me inside, and I'm surprised to find the house spotless. Stress cleaning, probably. It's what I've been doing too. I need to understand, I tell her, sitting on the edge of the couch. All of it. Carol nods, wringing her hands. Of course, you deserve that. She disappears into another room and returns with a small wooden box. When she opens it, I see dozens of old photographs. This is Amy, she says, handing me a faded picture of a newborn baby, the day she was born. I stare at the tiny face, seeing hints of Carol's features even then. There's another photo of a young Carol, barely recognizable, holding the baby with an expression of such raw love and grief that it makes my chest ache. My parents didn't know, she continues. I hid the pregnancy, wore baggy clothes, told them I was gaining weight from stress at college. She laughs bitterly. When it was time, a friend drove me to a hospital 2 towns over. I gave birth alone. And the father? A summer fling. He was gone before I knew I was pregnant. She pulls out another photo, Amy, at maybe 5 years old. Her hair in pigtails, grinning at the camera. Her adoptive parents sent me pictures for the first few years. Then they stopped. I thought I'd lost her forever. I flip through more photos. Amy's school pictures, graduation photos, candid shots that look like they were taken from social media. When did you find her? I ask. I didn't. She found me. Carol's voice breaks. 5 years ago. She showed up at my door with a DNA test and 23 years of questions. The timeline suddenly clicks. That was before she met Jake. Carol nods, tears streaming down her face. I begged her not to tell anyone. I was terrified of losing my family, of Jake finding out what I'd done. She agreed to keep it secret, but she wanted to know her family. She wanted to meet Jake, so she orchestrated running into him at that coffee shop. I say, the pieces falling into place. It wasn't a coincidence at all. She just wanted to meet her half-brother, Carol whispers. She never meant to fall in love with him. By the time she realized how deep it had gotten, she didn't know how to end it without revealing everything. So she stayed with him for 3 years? I can't keep the disgust from my voice, knowing he was her brother? They never, Carol stumbles over the words. I know. She said that yesterday. The thought still makes me sick. But she lied to him for 3 years, Carol. You both did. Carol looks down at the photos scattered between us. I've been begging her to help me fix this, to help bring Jake back. Before I can respond, the doorbell rings. Carol jumps up, hope flashing across her face. But when she opens the door, it's not Jake. It's an older man with silver hair and familiar eyes. Jake's father, Robert. I came as soon as I could, he says, stepping inside. His gaze lands on me, then the photos spread across the coffee table. His expression hardens. So, it's all out then. Carol stares at him, confusion written across her face. Robert? I don't understand. How did you… Jake called me, he says simply. Told me everything. He looks at the baby photos, at young Carol holding newborn Amy, though not everything, apparently. The way he says it makes my blood run cold. I watch Carol's face as realization dawns. You knew, she whispers. All this time, you knew about Amy. Robert sits down heavily in an armchair, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. Of course I knew, Carol. I've always known. The silence that follows is deafening. I feel like I'm intruding on something deeply private, but I can't make myself leave. This affects Jake, affects us too much. How? Carol finally asks. I saw the baby pictures in your drawer the first year we were married. Robert says, I hired someone to find out who she was. When I learned the truth, I decided to let you keep your secret. His voice hardens. What I never imagined was that you'd bring her into our son's life the way you did. Carol's hands are shaking. I never meant for them to meet like that. To date, it just happened. Nothing just happens, Carol, Robert snaps. You've been lying to our son his entire life, and now you've destroyed his trust in everything he thought was real. I stand up, unable to sit still any longer. We need to focus on Jake, on helping him through this. Robert nods. That's why I'm here. I've convinced him to come to dinner tomorrow night, to talk things through as a family. Carol's face lights up with hope, but Robert holds up his hand. Not you, Carol, and not Amy. Just me, Jake, and… He looks at me questioningly. I'll be there, I say firmly. Carol's face crumples. Robert, please, he's my son. And you've hurt him more deeply than anyone else ever could. Robert replies, his voice softening slightly. Give him time, Carol. This isn't something that gets fixed over one dinner. As I leave Carol's house, the weight of everything I've learned sits heavy on my chest. Tomorrow's dinner feels like our one chance to start putting the pieces back together, but when I text Jake about it, his response is immediate and clear. I'm not coming. I find Jake sitting in the corner booth of O'Malley's, the dive bar where we had our first date. Dave is with him, their empty glasses forming a small battalion on the sticky wooden table. Jake doesn't notice me at first, his eyes fixed on something invisible in the middle distance while Dave talks in a low voice, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. Jake, I say, sliding into the booth beside him. He looks at me, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. The smell of whiskey hangs around him like cologne. How'd you find me? His words are slightly slurred. Dave texted me. I admit. Dave gives me an apologetic shrug before excusing himself to the bathroom, leaving us alone. I told him not to. Jake signals the bartender for another round. You've had enough, I say, covering his hand with mine. He pulls away like my touch burns. Have I? His laugh is hollow. I don't think I'll ever have enough to forget that my ex-girlfriend is my sister. My fucking sister. He says it too loudly, and a couple at the next table glances over. I lower my voice. You can't keep doing this. It's been 5 days, Jake. You need to come home. Home? He shakes his head. I don't even know what that is anymore. My whole life is a lie. Not us, I say firmly. What we have isn't a lie. He looks at me then. Really looks at me, and for a moment I see through the anger to the hurt little boy beneath. How do I know that? How do I know anything anymore? Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Amy. I need to talk to Jake. It's important, please. I turn my phone over, but Jake has already seen the notification. She's texting you now? Jesus Christ. I haven't responded, I assure him. I wouldn't do that without talking to you first. Jake runs his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it makes my chest ache. She showed up at my office yesterday. My stomach drops. What? Why didn't you tell me? What was I supposed to say? Hey, honey, my sister/ex ambushed me at work today? He signals for water instead of another drink, which I count as a small victory. She cornered me in the parking garage, said she needed to explain. What did she say? Jake stares at his water glass like it might contain answers. She said she never meant for any of this to happen, that when she found Carol, she just wanted to know where she came from. But then Carol showed her pictures of me, told her stories. He trails off, swallowing hard. She said she met me on purpose. But falling in love wasn't part of the plan. Do you believe her? I ask carefully. I don't know what to believe anymore. He looks utterly defeated. She told me she tried to break it off a dozen times but couldn't figure out how without telling me the truth. And then it had gone on so long that she was terrified of what would happen when I found out. She should have been terrified, I say, unable to keep the edge from my voice. What she did was wrong, Jake. What both of them did was wrong. He nods, staring into his water. She cried. Said she'd give anything to go back and do things differently. His voice cracks. She had adoption papers with her. Showed me her birth certificate with Mother Unknown listed. Said she'd always felt something was missing. I reach for his hand again, and this time he lets me take it. I can't imagine how confusing this is for you. I told her to stay away from me, he says quietly. I told her we were never family and never would be. My phone rings, cutting through our moment. Carol's name flashes on the screen again. I decline the call, but seconds later, it rings again. She's been calling nonstop, I explain. I haven't been answering. The phone rings a third time. Something about the persistence makes my stomach twist with unease. Maybe you should answer, Jake says, surprising me. Something might be wrong. I pick up on the fourth ring. Carol, this isn't a good time. It's Robert. Jake's father's voice is tight with tension. Carol's in the hospital. She took pills. The world seems to stop. She left a note. Robert continues, his voice cracking. For Jake, the doctors say she'll recover, but you need to come. Both of you. I look at Jake, whose face has drained of color. He can tell from my expression that something is terribly wrong. We'll be right there, I say, ending the call. The hospital corridor is too bright, too sterile. Robert meets us outside Carol's room, his face haggard with exhaustion. Amy is already there, sitting in a plastic chair with her head in her hands. She looks up when we approach, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. What happened? Jake asks his father, deliberately not looking at Amy. Robert hands Jake an envelope. She left this for you. The housekeeper found her and called 911. His voice is clinical, detached. They pumped her stomach. She'll be okay physically. Jake stares at the envelope like it might bite him. His name is written on the front in Carol's elegant script. I can't, he whispers, shoving it back at his father. Not yet. Amy stands up, her movements tentative. Jake, I'm so sorry. Don't. Jake's voice is ice. Don't talk to me. A doctor emerges from Carol's room, clipboard in hand. She's awake, asking for her son. Jake looks at me, panic in his eyes. I squeeze his hand. I'll be right here. He nods once and follows the doctor into the room, leaving me in the hallway with Robert and Amy. The silence stretches between us, thick and uncomfortable. I never wanted this, Amy says finally, her voice barely audible. Any of it. I look at her, really look at her for the first time. The resemblance to Carol is striking now that I know to look for it. The same delicate jawline, the same way of holding herself. Then why did you do it? I ask. Why date him for 3 years knowing who he was? Amy twists a strand of hair around her finger, Carol's nervous habit. I just wanted to know my brother. To be part of the family I never had. She pulls a folder from her bag, hands trembling. I've had these since I was 23. My adoption records. She opens the folder and I see photocopies of official documents. Birth certificates, adoption papers, letters. My adoptive parents died when I was in college. She continues. Car accident. I was alone, completely alone. So I hired someone to find my birth mother. She pulls out a photograph, a younger Carol holding a newborn. When I found her, she begged me not to tell anyone, said it would destroy her marriage, her relationship with Jake. Robert makes a sound in his throat, drawing our attention. That's not true, he says quietly. I've known since the beginning. I would have welcomed you, Amy. Amy stares at him, confusion written across her face. She told me you'd leave her if you found out. Robert shakes his head sadly. Another of Carol's lies. I found the baby pictures years ago. I knew she'd given up a child before we met. I never held it against her. Then why didn't you say something? I ask. Because she needed to tell the truth herself, Robert says. I was waiting for her to trust me enough to confess. I never imagined she'd bring Amy into Jake's life the way she did. The door to Carol's room opens, and Jake emerges, his face ashen. He's holding the open letter in one hand. She says she couldn't live with what she'd done to me. He says, his voice hollow, that she'd ruined my life twice, once by giving away my sister and again by letting me fall in love with her. Amy makes a small, wounded sound. Jake looks at her, really looks at her, for the first time since entering the hospital. I need to know everything, he says. All of it, no more secrets. Amy nods, tears streaming down her face, and holds up the folder of adoption records. It's all here. I've been carrying it for 5 years. Jake takes a deep breath, then turns to me. Will you stay? I can't do this alone. I take his hand, feeling the tremor running through him. Of course. Always. The four of us move toward the small waiting area at the end of the hall, away from Carol's room. It's time for the whole truth to come out, every secret, every lie, every missing piece of this fractured family puzzle. As we sit down, I notice Jake hasn't let go of my hand. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. It's been 3 weeks since Carol's suicide attempt. The hospital waiting room feels like another lifetime ago, a moment when everything hung in the balance, when our family could have fractured beyond repair. Instead, we're slowly, painfully, rebuilding. Jake sits across from Dr. Levine, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. I'm beside him on the leather couch, close enough that our shoulders touch. This is his 4th therapy session, but the first time he's asked me to join. I keep having this dream, Jake says, his voice steadier than it was a week ago. I'm looking through old photo albums, but all the pictures are wrong. In every family photo, Amy's face is blurred out, or she's standing just outside the frame, watching us. Dr. Levine nods. That's your mind processing the revelation about your family history. These dreams are actually a healthy sign of integration. Jake leans forward. But how do I stop feeling like my entire childhood was a lie? Every birthday, every Christmas, she was out there somewhere. My sister. And no one told me. Not everyone knew, I remind him gently. Your dad did, but he was respecting Carol's wishes. Which is another thing I'm trying to forgive, Jake says, running his hand through his hair. He watched me date Amy for 3 years knowing she was my half-sister. Dr. Levine makes a note on her pad. And how are you handling interactions with Amy now? Jake's jaw tightens. We're talking, sort of, text messages mostly. It's weird trying to reframe someone from ex-girlfriend to half-sister overnight. It's not overnight, Dr. Levine corrects. This transition will take time. You're unlearning one relationship while building another entirely different one. I squeeze Jake's hand, feeling the tension in his fingers. After the hospital, he moved back home with me, but there are still moments when I catch him staring into space, lost in thoughts I can't access. Carol wants us all to come for dinner on Sunday. I say, addressing both Jake and Dr. Levine. The first real family dinner since everything came out. Dr. Levine looks at Jake. How do you feel about that? Terrified, he admits. But also, ready, maybe? Mom's been going to her own therapy sessions. She and Amy have been meeting for coffee once a week. Just the two of them. He shakes his head in disbelief. They're trying to figure out how to be mother and daughter without the secrecy. And you? Dr. Levine asks, are you ready to be Amy's brother? Jake's laugh is hollow but not bitter. I don't know what that even means. We dated for 3 years. We talked about marriage once. He shudders slightly. Thank God we never. He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Carol's house looks the same but feels different. The photos on the mantle have been rearranged. New ones added, including a picture of Amy as a toddler with her adoptive parents. It's Carol's way of acknowledging the past, while creating space for the truth. They're here. Carol calls from the kitchen when the doorbell rings. Her voice carries a nervous edge that wasn't there before. I open the door to find Amy standing on the porch, a bottle of wine in one hand and a small gift bag in the other. She's wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back. She looks less like Carol today, or maybe I'm just getting better at seeing her as her own person. Hi, she says softly. Is Jake? In the living room, I reply, stepping aside to let her in. Amy hesitates in the entryway. I brought something. For both of you. She hands me the gift bag. It's not much. Just, I thought it might help. Inside is a small photo album. I open it to find pictures of Amy growing up, birthdays, graduations, ordinary moments with her adoptive parents. On the last page is a note in careful handwriting. This is who I was. I'm still figuring out who I am now. Thank you for giving me the chance to find out. Thank you, I say, meaning it. This helps. Jake appears in the hallway, his expression guarded but not hostile. Hey, he says to Amy. Hey, she replies. The awkwardness hangs between them until Carol emerges from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She's lost weight since the hospital, but color has returned to her face. She's stopped dyeing her hair, allowing the gray to show through a small act of authenticity. Dinner's almost ready, she says, Robert setting the table. The four of us move into the dining room, where Robert is placing silverware with careful precision. He looks up when we enter, his eyes lingering on Amy. You look nice, he says. It's the first genuine compliment he's given her since everything came out. Thanks, Amy says, twisting a strand of hair around her finger, that nervous habit she shares with Carol. I wasn't sure what to wear to a family dinner. The word family hangs in the air between us. Carol brings out a roast chicken, setting it in the center of the table. There's a moment of collective hesitation, no one quite sure where to sit or how to act. Then Jake pulls out a chair next to me. Amy, he says, gesturing to the seat across from us. Sit there so we can see you. It's a small olive branch, but Amy's face lights up. She takes the seat, carefully arranging her napkin in her lap. I made sure there's no shellfish in anything, Carol says, looking at Amy. I remember your EpiPen, but I thought it's better to be safe. Thanks, Amy says. The allergy's gotten better as I've gotten older, but still better safe than sorry. Jake watches this exchange with a strange expression. It's weird, he says finally. All those little details Mom always knew about you. Your middle name, your allergies. I thought she was just being nosy, but she already knew. Carol looks down at her plate. I should have told you both the truth years ago. Before you met, before any of this happened. Why didn't you? Jake asks. It's a question he's asked before, but this time, there's less anger in it. Carol takes a deep breath. Fear, shame. I was 19 when I had Amy. My parents would have disowned me. And then I met your father, and I was so afraid of losing him. She glances at Robert, even though he knew all along. I should have said something too, Robert admits. I thought I was protecting your relationship with your mother. Amy fiddles with her fork. And I should have walked away the moment I realized Jake was my half-brother. I'd spent so long looking for my family. I couldn't bear to lose you all again. The honesty in the room is raw but healing. We eat slowly. Conversation stilted at first, but gradually finding a rhythm. Jake tells a story about work that makes Amy laugh, and for a moment, I glimpse what their relationship might become, the siblings they should have been all along. After dinner, Carol brings out a photo album I've never seen before. I thought we could look at these together, she says hesitantly. If that's okay. Jake nods, and we gather in the living room. The album contains pictures of Carol when she was young, before Amy, before Jake, before any of the secrets that would shape their lives. This was me at 19, Carol says, pointing to a photo of herself in bell-bottoms and a flowing top, her stomach still flat, 3 months before Amy was born. Amy touches the photo gently. You look so young. I was, Carol says, too young to know what I was giving up. Jake leans forward to see the picture better. You have the same eyes, he observes, looking between Carol and Amy, and the same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. It's the first time he's acknowledged their resemblance without bitterness. As we drive home that night, Jake is quiet, staring out the window at the passing streetlights. You okay? I ask. He turns to me, his eyes clearer than they've been in weeks. I think I will be. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. I reach for his hand. I'm proud of you. For what? I didn't do anything special. You did, I insist. You could have walked away from all of this, your mom, Amy, the whole situation. Instead, you're trying to build something new from the ruins. Jake squeezes my hand. I couldn't have done it without you, he pauses. When all this first came out, I was so angry I couldn't see straight. But you stayed. You kept me grounded when I wanted to burn everything down. That's what marriage is, I say simply. When we get home, Jake pulls me into a hug so tight I can feel his heartbeat against my chest. We stand like that for a long time, holding each other in our darkened living room. I love you, he whispers against my hair, more than before all this happened. If that's possible. It's possible, I assure him. We're stronger now. And as we get ready for bed that night, I realize it's true. The secrets that threaten to destroy us have instead forced us to build something more honest, more resilient. There are still hard days ahead, moments when the past will resurface in unexpected ways, but we'll face them together. Family isn't just about blood or shared history. Sometimes it's about choosing to stay when everything falls apart, about rebuilding from the broken pieces, about creating something new from the ashes of what was lost. And sometimes, if you're lucky, what you build is even stronger than what came before.